Buy into climate change.
It's getting real warm outside. I don't know though. When I was a kid, I remember it being hot like this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I will say.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So it doesn't snow this year when I was a kid.
No, I lived here, man. I lived here. I felt like when I was a little kid, it was unbearably hot all the time. And then the summers got milder for a while, and now it seems like this year especially it's coming back. But even last year, summer was pretty
Well,
intense.
this year has a charming element of it's been cooling down in the evening, and that only happened 1 year when I was a kid.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh,
I love that. Yeah, it's great.
Hello, Chair Burt. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for working on that for me. No, it's just something that we've always done. A large group of people, a possibility of getting hurt, that kind of stuff. Just make it closer, right? We don't have to. So like if they've got like Mhm. She won't do that. Mhm. Okay.
No.
Sure. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Wonderful deal. Thank you. All right.
And one of those
Excellent.
chair meetings. We
You too.
talked about
Thanks.
norms as
Go
far as
back.
what to say on those Monday nights, the chair. And I thought we agreed on less is more.
Really? I thought we agreed on more.
Did you?
No, I'm just-
Well, anyway, I every time I, just make it brief, Jenny always adds about, it. So I'm kind of caught in the middle of knowing whether I should say no or not. So,
I'd say you think let any go
Yeah,
the rest.
yeah.
If she feels like there's any details you left out, I think reading the action items is a great way to go about it. And saying that the minute there's written, you feel the things that's written accurately reflect your meeting.
okay.
Stuff into the meeting. Yeah.
No, you can leave.
Oh, now.
No.
So here if you want.
You want to move your name tag somewhere else? Or do you want to squish in between us? Nothing's more exciting than when you have a peanut butter sandwich and then you put jelly on it.
What?
We had a peanut butter sandwich and you're in the.
Oh, gotcha.
moment. You ever heard that one?
No, I've never heard that.
Nothing's more exciting than when you have a peanut butter sandwich and you get jelly in it.
Yeah. Southwestern Wisconsin culture,
That's when somebody else sits down.
It's
It's cross culture.
really southwestern Wisconsin culture and really more southeastern Wisconsin culture. Or really the southeast or the southeast for the specific.
Milwaukee. Yeah.
I forgot to send my 11 pages to you, Sam.
Oh,
We also you could say,
sorry, you can bring them up during the meeting. That's much more.
like when you're holding hands and you walk and something gets in your way and you have to separate, you say bread and butter.
yeah. That's way old.
Never heard of it.
I know.
Yeah,
But that,
I remember seeing that
that
in
was when I was a
cartoons
kid,
when I was a kid. So. Well, we're gonna have a new governor next time around.
That was big news today.
Yeah,
Shocked, kind of.
I really thought you were driving it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's gonna be a lot of money spent on this one.
It'll be fun.
you think?
When has that not been?
I think everyone's
Yeah, I
gonna
know.
chill out and
It's
it's not gonna be a
true,
big deal.
Yeah, everybody's gonna like, whatever. you
Yeah.
know.
I can go either way, they'll say. All right, well, I've got 5 o'clock on my computer, so I'm calling the meeting to order. Policy Committee meeting, July 24th. First up, we have public input, 10 minutes. In each committee meeting, we are going to have 10 minutes set aside for public speaking. Each individual is limited to 2 minutes per person, and they must speak on something that is relevant to the committee that they're speaking at. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
My name is Michelle Stewart, 1403 Schuman Drive. Policies, the A and F that are up for discussion today are in direct violation of board policies 0122B and 0144.5. These policies, along with any other will, mount, or liberty, or failed political policies, do not belong to public education and are agenda-based, anti-education, and anti-teacher policies. Because these policies directly violate already standing board policies, this committee and the board should follow procedures for terminating the practice immediately. Due to time constraints, I've limited my concerns to the following 3 questions. What research-based best practices support censoring my children's education through these policies, especially in regards to college and career readiness? Since this committee should be using facts and not propaganda to support your decisions that impact classroom instruction, you should be able to easily answer that question using education-based studies. What is the district planning to do to counteract these policies and continue to retain and recruit high-quality teachers, given that these policies micromanage trained professionals, especially when looking at the recent teacher surveys that point out wanting to be treated like professionals and not being micromanaged? The state is currently in a teacher shortage crisis, with districts going without filling classroom teacher positions because there aren't enough educators. What is the district's plan for replacing AP and dual credit classes after these policies are put into place? College Board has a very clear policy against censorship and does pull AP classes from districts that approve policies that ban books and censor topics being taught. Dual credit classes must follow the curriculum given to the districts by cooperating colleges, which can include topics that could be considered controversial. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. All right, and it looks like there's no one else for public comment, so we will head on to the first item up for discussion. Item A is policy 5780, student parents' rights. We had some discussion last month about this and adding some additional information, but since then we have had some updates on the national level, and Jared has brought along some of those updates for us. So I'm going to give it over to Jared and he can take it away.
Yeah, so if you look at the parents' rights policy content, you have the first look at our old student and parent rights policy. You have the proposed bill AB 510 that was in 2023. And then we have 5780 that says edited. This is the one that I'd like you to open because this is the one that our attorney and I worked on, taking the resources that you asked us to look at. Bill AB 18, excuse me, the previous bill we just cited, and my screen is as well as I'm sorry, as well as actually some new information too that came out this spring related to a case that went through the Supreme Court that dealt with parental rights. And where you're going to see that piece is you're going to see that in number 7. Okay, and number 7 says the right to opt their child out of class or instructional materials in writing for reason-based or other reason-based on either religion or personal conviction consistent with board policy 2270. That's our religion and education policy, and state and federal law. So new whenever there's new case law or laws or whatever that come by, we want to make sure that we, when we're updating policy, we put those in. So you'll see that from a current case law that came through. And then the rest of it is going through the proposed bill that went to our governor's office and was vetoed, but is sitting here. And we made it more consistent with our other policies that we currently had. You can see where we've cited those now. We've cited many of our policies because actually we had those as rights, but we're just trying to, so it's not like this is something new, right? I mean, we had those listed and enumerated in many other policies. So going through all of our other policies, we wanted to make it consistent with current policy. And so that's what we have for you. Any questions, and I'll take them. And
So our previous discussion involved, in a timely manner, I believe was the term. And we were wondering what that meant in the bill. And I actually contacted one of the legislators that was involved, and she said it was meant to understand 2 weeks.
yeah, and we're actually going to aim towards the new Supreme Court federal legislation,
Which
says, and if I think if we go to the controversial issues in the classroom, I'll read it to you because we're actually citing it there. And so let me see if I can find the exact verbiage there to be consistent with the ruling. And so here it says, teachers shall provide effective notice to parents in advance of controversial issues in the classroom being instructed in the classroom. Effective notice shall be construed to mean notice sufficiently in advance of instruction such that a parent may opt out of particular units, classes, assemblies, or announcements prior to the information being presented to the student.
Okay, so how, as an administrator, how would you enact that? What would that look like in reality?
Right, and so our first thing was to take a look at what does policy have to look like and changed, right? In ed services coming up, it's been requested that we put it on ed services coming up here, I believe in August. And we're going to talk about how do we take this policy, should this policy go forward and through the board, how are we going to enact this policy in a meaningful way that gives teachers the tools to make sure that they are doing that, right?
That's the time element is going to be there. Okay,
correct.
Thank you. I appreciate
Okay,
that.
so I don't have the answer. What I'm saying
That's
briefly is I don't have the answer for that right now tonight.
Yeah.
But I do know that that's something Ed Services is going to be talking about through that approach.
Great, thank you.
We're just talking about the policy tonight.
Would that come by way of like administrative guideline at that point?
Yeah, I believe administrative guideline and or, I mean, it depends on if we even have to go that far. It may just be making sure that we have the teachers informed of the new law, right? And we put structures in place to make sure that that reporting out to parents happens. And we're going to talk at Ed Services. Does that need further administrative guideline? We want to talk with the building principals as well. Some of them aren't back until August. Our elementary principals have a time off in the summer. And so I want to make sure that everybody's on page to do it. I did get a question earlier from a board member that said, well, what if the start of the school year happens and we don't have everything in place? So, well, we'll have policy in place. We'll have an opt-out form in place. And as instructed by our attorney, we'll act as quickly as practicable. But people have to realize that, when law changes happen, we can't just snap our fingers and go. But we're way ahead of a number of districts that I've already talked to.
Excellent.
Matter of fact, I'm going to be sharing next week when I'm at our legal conference. Here's what we did. And I bet you everybody's going to go, can we get our eyes on that? We'll be okay with that. So, but I don't have all the answers, and it's something that we're just going to have to work through. I mean, policy is easier than practice, and we'll take policy and then put it into practice.
Yeah.
We just have to take the steps.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I actually just throwing this out there. I think it might be more advantageous to have a student's bill of rights and a parent's bill of rights to clearly define
Separately?
the rights, yes. So is there any way that we could possibly have somebody assigned to maybe draft, like Sam did in the past, he drafted C, somebody else assigned to draft a policy or work with administration to separate these two?
I
So
could-
there'll be
I
a
mean,
parents
I
bill,
can,
parents' rights and a student's rights policy,
yeah, I
so
can work
it's,
with our attorney to do that.
okay, oh,
I
that's
mean,
perfect.
If you guys don't think they work well married, I mean, we just went off of what we've always had in the past,
Mhm.
right?
I think it would just be better to define the two separately.
Where that stands. I mean, you could even have it to kind of bounce off your idea. You could even have it be in the same policy, but two different sections if you wanted to do it
Yeah,
that way.
that's possible as well.
Yeah, not
But
that I
just
think
a
that this
clear
reads that.
definition between the rights that a student has and the rights that
Alright.
parents have.
So I agree with Sam. I like it, like maybe in the same policy, right?
Mhm.
But then
But two
enumerate
sections.
them differently, and
Yeah.
I'll work with our attorney. to make
Okay,
sure.
perfect. I'm good with that.
I'd be on the same page. Lauren?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
For what it's worth, for somebody who just looked at the policy, because I'm not on the committee, so but I was catching up here. I had the exact same question. That it didn't seem to me to make good sense to combine them for
Okay.
clarity purposes. So that's just from an outside, looking in for time.
When questions arise of, oh, what if there's like a student and parent conflict? How do you figure that out? Yeah,
That's why I like having them in the same area, but
yeah, no, I like that.
same area separated,
Yeah, like maybe like
Mhm.
a first header, second header kind of
Mhm.
scenario. Okay.
Definitely. All right. Anything else? No? All right, moving on to item B, Neola policies 5,000, group 5. Got a number of policies in here. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to mention right off the bat?
I was curious about the grading, and this is not my area of expertise, so this might be a dumb question. In one of these policies, it talks about grading, and it talks about improvement being a metric rather than the yardstick of first grade, second standards. Am I reading that wrong? I'm wondering, I know.
Like summative assessment grading, was it like towards that area?
Yeah, do you know which paragraph it was in?
I think it was more in the formative assessment.
Yeah, and that's the
Right.
summative is more like the grade standard. Formative is how is the individual student moving along. So I think it's in the second paragraph. Emphasis is placed on the development of skills and content knowledge rather than on the accumulation of points and grades. Formative feedback provides opportunities for students to respond to that feedback with additional learning opportunities and support as deemed reasonable and appropriate to the classroom teacher. Does that sound like what you were looking at?
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
it just sounded a little,
And that's a great question. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think,
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
it is a little mushy because it's what we use, in order to, help continue to guide instruction.
so, this week I met a student, not a WESD student, that was, that is reading at the kindergarten, first grade level and is being promoted to the third grade in his school. Is that something we would do based on this policy?
We've done that before.
And is it based on this
Well,
policy?
and sometimes we would take that student and not necessarily move them to the third grade, but through our advanced learner program, give them the extra knowledge and everything that they need.
So
We've done either,
they get the help they need to get to grade level, is what you're saying.
not only to get to grade level, but if they're also above grade level, because it sounded like you said they were at first or second grade and moved to third grade,
Well,
right?
they've been progressing all along, and this year he moved to third grade. And
She's saying they read at a kindergarten or.
Oh,
first
they're
grade level.
reading at.
Right, right.
And they're still.
Oh,
moving
okay, I
forward.
thought I heard the opposite.
no.
Yeah, on the other side, we do intervention,
Okay.
purposes and especially now with the Act 20,
Mhm.
we would have a student like that on a reading plan.
Okay.
And so they'd have a individualized reading plan and then.
Okay, so you're not just grading on improvement, you're comparing.
Correct.
Thank you. This is not my area of expertise, so I
Yeah.
took this opportunity to learn.
You might also want to refer back to policy 5410 and 5411. Those are the promotion and retention policies.
I think we talked about those in May, or did we talk about them in June?
We did talk about, I think in May, because Melissa she said it was specifically tailored for Act 20. It was a
Mhm.
new policy that we had to implement because of Act 20
And we did have discussions about
retention.
retention versus promotion and like how that plays. And kind of the judgment call that are
Yeah,
required.
and our May discussion was just to clean up around Act 20. Prior to that, I don't know when it was, October or something like that.
Yeah.
We went through a major rehaul of
Mhm.
those as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Anything else in the 5,000 group? I did have, I'll bring this up quick. I did have a constituent email me about academic honesty 5505, specifically about items C and D as they relate to learning a foreign language or learning a language that is not English, and whether or not this could potentially impede on the use of artificial intelligence or other tools in the process of learning at a, here, let me read the quote. The end goal in the early stages of learning learning another language is learning the language. In these cases, using AI tools as described would in fact be considered cheating. And so I just wanted to bring this up because, having looked it over, I did have a question about that. None of this totally prohibits the use of AI in the classroom. It's at the teacher's discretion. And this is more about using AI to synthesize information that comes from other sources and then passing it off as your own in a plagiaristic kind of fashion.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, if we need to get a little bit clearer on how we want to do AI, there's models out there for policy. We can really write that in. But in our school district, students under the teacher's direction, right, are allowed to use AI tools for different things.
Sure.
And if that's a thing that would help them with the learning process, I don't see a teacher saying, no, you can't use it.
Yeah. I see it the same way. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that immediately? I did want to bring it up. This is a first read item, so we will have the opportunity. If I hear more and is something that we should change that is observed, we can obviously talk about that in the coming future. Yeah.
So just letter G, allowing another person to copy one's own work. I mean, you would encourage kid to go to another kid to get notes,
Oh, yeah.
that sort of thing.
I think
Yeah,
we're talking
I
about
think-
graded
Yeah,
material.
I think like we're talking about a worksheet or
Right,
something,
right.
not what was discussed in chemistry yesterday.
And I think always when you're looking at these standards across a lot of our policies, there is always going to be an element of discretion involved in the application of any policy. Even the best written policy is going to have an element of that. So I think it makes sense from what I'm seeing right now, but I do welcome anyone who has any thoughts about that to reach out or let me know if you see something. But yeah, anything else? All right, if there's nothing else, we're gonna move on to the 8,000 group.
Oh, wait, I'm
yeah.
sorry, I was just reading.
Oh, you're all good.
Do they heavily use AI in the dual language, which I'm fine with? I'm just wondering if there should be, if they do, to help the child transition to, being fluent in English. It says is strictly prohibited in this policy. So do we want to adjust that language if it's not strictly prohibited? I'm all for using the tool. I'm just saying I don't want a policy that would maybe
Yeah, I was
Cause-
I
caution by staff members to allow it.
again, I don't see conflict between
Okay.
our policy and the practices that we're practicing.
Okay.
Right,
Works for me
we've
then.
given our teachers the ability to have students use those tools under their direction. If I start to see an issue with it, I'd be the first one to come and say, we need to write some policy around this.
Okay,
I haven't seen any issues of it, so.
okay, all right, that works for me.
Sure. All right. We'll bring that forward. And if there are any further questions, like I said, I encourage people to reach out. All right. Then we'll move on to item C, Neola policies 8,000 group. Anyone have any thoughts about any of these?
I do not.
They are, solid.
So even with parent permission, my son couldn't go with another parent?
Say that again?
I mean, another parent, that I couldn't give permission to my son to ride home with his best friend Johnny's parents, even with written permission?
You're talking about 8660, right?
Yeah,
Transportation by private vehicle for
Right,
district sponsored activities or trips.
That's not true. We allow students to, ride with other people's parents.
am I reading that wrong?
Parents, including board employees, may transport their own child for district sponsored activities or trips when the district procedures for notification are followed and authorization for private vehicle transportation is issued. Otherwise, the board does not allow the transportation of students in a private vehicle for district sponsored activities or trips unless authorized by the administrator. And so I think the distinction there would be that the administrator authorizes the
And so, I let our building principals know, like, if there's like a sporting event or something like that. For instance, we've had a lot of trouble getting transportation for especially our middle school sports because of the lack of drivers and everything else. So we're lately really putting it out there for things like track, cross country, volleyball. When we can't get a bus, hey parents, will you help volunteer to drive a group of students? Right, and then we have this spreadsheet of who, but any parent who is willing to drive, they have to go through, submitting their vehicle insurance, all that stuff with our business office. They have a form that they have to fill out and everything else. But then they're allowed to, and if it's organized like that, we allow it. And that's why I said we do allow it. It's just not like you just can't say, well, hey, can so and so, no, it has to be organized and approved.
That is a good question, though. That is a good question to clarify. What's allowed and what's not and how that works together. But yeah, it makes sense to me. Any other questions on the 8,000 policy group?
For me.
Okay. These new policies that we're talking about, by the way, because of our timing here, this is my understanding, are not going to be on the consent agenda for first read on Monday, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So these will be coming in August. Yeah, they'll be coming in August for first read to that. So in the meantime, if you guys happen to see anything on here and you do want it to come back, shoot me and Jared an email and we'll put it on the policy agenda for August if need be.
Yeah, this meeting is after we
Yeah.
had the posting of the other meeting, so.
Yes, exactly. All right, then we'll move on to item D, 2414, human growth and development. We have some edits here as well. So Jared, please
Yep,
take
so
away.
if you go to the 2414 edited, the main edit that we had discussed, and it's taking a minute to load up, was the parent opt-in option for what we wanted to do. So if you scroll down, I would say it's right towards the end of the document, right at the end. We have some information in there that basically says if no student will be required to take the human growth and development in class, the WSD shall notify parents in advance of the instruction and give them an opportunity prior to the instruction to review the complete program of instructional materials and their right to consent or consistent with that statute, not consent their child to receive such instruction. The notice shall state that in the event of the student is exempted, that the student will still receive instruction under this, the notice shall state that in the event a student is exempted, the student will still receive instruction under statute unless exempted under that statute. And we needed to put that in because the statute says, right, exempt, but it was moot on opt-in. And so we're gonna say, yes, we know that the statute says exempt, but we're giving you notice that we are going to do an opt-in program and not an exemption program. And that's why we wanted to cite it here, because we didn't want somebody to get confused. They read the state law and they said, hey, I want to exempt. And we say, listen, you are exempt, but you just have to fill out our form, saying that you consent or you don't consent. And if you say you don't consent, that's exemption.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look, then there's a form that was created that we will use along with the notice to parents that they have the right to review the materials attached, and here's the exemption form. And that's what we will start doing when this policy is enacted. Okay, so if you see the other document there, that's the opt-in form for human growth and development. That was the only change that was recommended, but that's there for you.
Nice job, thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Jared.
thank you.
It's really good.
Thank you, Renee.
Thanks, Renee. She does great work.
She does great work. I just bring her the issues and she helps us solve them. So,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I concur and applaud the policy committee for opt-in. It is obviously, as you know now, it is not illegal. A lot about this law for all kinds of reasons. And I've always believed it should be opt-in. So first question is, I looked at the agenda that came out for the 28th for our regular meeting, and I noticed the annual forms there. I'm assuming that this will be, if this is approved by this policy committee, that the annual forms then section on HD&D will be updated to reflect.
So we're working towards that. We're trying to also get everything also electronic and on its own webpage for like our annual notices and stuff. And so that way, as they get approved, we approve them immediately instead of kind of waiting for annual notices every year, right? So that we just keep up on it. But yes,
So I just happened to, well, I didn't just happen to see it, I looked for it in there. On the Citizens Advisory Committee, the law stopped short of, let me just back up, just give you a quick history on this. When this form of the law with it, and of course it's voluntary for every school district, whether you do HG&D or not.
right.
But you always have to have this advisory committee under this kind of composition that we currently have. The previous time that we had HG&D, before we had comprehensive sex for a very limited time, for 2 years in our state legislature and law, there was a 3-year mandated review.
Correct.
This
5
stopped
years,
short.
5 years. I think it was a 5-year mandated review.
So the board, I think it's 3. But there was a mandated
It's
review.
it's gone now,
There was a
right?
mandated
Yes.
review. The current law does not have that in it. I would recommend that this be changed to have some kind of a review period. Because excuse me, I've been in touch with numerous school districts across the state for years. And one of the problems they've run into is because there is no mandated review, nobody's really watching it. Nobody really knows how it's being implemented. And then all of a sudden something will happen and there'll be a furor. So my recommendation is the policy committee look at a mandated review period.
Yeah, I believe that it's going to be on our curriculum. We have a curriculum plan of what subjects get updated at what time. And that's a review cycle that happens through.
That's 5 to
Right.
7.
Right, and it's a 5 to 7 year review cycle, I believe, is what Jenny put together. Is that right?
Yes, I do believe it was 5 to 7 years.
Because I know that's new. It's part of the new policies and everything around curriculum instruction, but that would be on that review cycle. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, assuming that's under HD&D, as you know, Jared has its approach to schools in very different ways. There's classes in it, and it's stuck into other subjects, and then it still falls under the HD&D state law. So, however that is appropriately reviewed, I think 5 years is too long, but if that's what we think is appropriate, I think education changes too fast to go 5 to 7 years on something like that.
Do we have a category
The re-
of policies that are reviewed more often?
No, and really it becomes more of a fiscal function than anything. I mean, if we're reviewing curriculum quicker than this, 2 things. One, having the fiscal dollars to be able to renew any materials that might come with that curriculum review is one thing. But 2, when you review a curriculum, you go through the review stage, then an implementation stage, then you're teaching it, right? If you're doing that every 3 years, you're not ever getting good at teaching it. You're reviewing, implementing, shutting down, reviewing, implementing. And that, right, like, so you wanna have some consistency over time so that you can, be into that curriculum piece and understand and develop what that is.
Okay, so just so everybody on this committee understands, on your policy committee, the way this is structured with the advisory committee, there's no definite time that has to be convened,
No,
right?
under this policy, you're right, but under our curriculum policy where we have,
But you would only convene it once every 5 to 7 years?
that's correct.
Well,
My question is, when was the last time we've had a citizen advisory committee review this?
Oh, I'd have to look at the documents.
2000.
2000,
Is what Melissa said.
yeah, I would say
2000.
2003, 4, 5, something like that.
25 years ago was the last time they looked
It
at
was,
the
it was a
whole
long time
curriculum, and
ago.
then they made some adjustments around 2012, but it was just, she said it wasn't like a whole review. It was just a few revisions.
okay, in 2012 is when Governor Walker signed this bill, okay? And that's when the composition of the committee changed. It was very loose before that, and it was severely tightened up. So let's say it was 2012. Now we're talking 15 years since this has been reviewed. So, or the committee comprised and convened.
So that's why I find, I agree with you that it should state something at least every 3 years. It should be reviewed, from a, and the only way that I feel that there's ever any type of urgency that is placed in the situation is if it does say that in the policy. Otherwise, a citizen advisory committee doesn't ever get established, and maybe after 3 years it becomes more of a formality, just to be, hey, what are we teaching and whatnot, and we move forward.
Well, I would agree with you, Craig, and I certainly respect what you're saying, Jared, about the time for implementation. I get that. But the purpose of the committee is not to necessarily invoke change. The purpose of the committee is to review it and to make sure that what is being done is in sync with what has been given and agreed upon as a curriculum, to see how it's going, to get reports back. You notice this law has no teeth in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no punishment. The only thing that actually acts as a check is the advisory committee. I mean, from the outside, okay, and that was the whole purpose, was to comprise it.
The school board actually is the check on it, right?
Well, if it
Through
hasn't been
administration.
reviewed since.
I'm not gonna cast aspersions on a last administration or board and those many that happened through there, right?
No, I'm just saying.
All I can say is under my watch, it's not gonna happen that same way, and it hasn't. But I do wanna make sure that, like, if we are doing things, right, we make sure that we have good implementation, good instruction through that. Right, and I think if we're in a constant state of review, you never really get to that best practice. If you want 3 years, we can do 3 years. That's fine. I mean, that's your. I am recommending 5 years, right? I think it does give you some of that breath between to make sure that best practices in the instruction part, outside of review, outside of continual review, we get to see the instruction develop over time, right? That's just my sense of it. You guys can do whatever you want.
So I can definitely hear where you're coming from, Jared. I fall more on the side of 3 years. I think the frequency makes sense in this context. But I do think that there's an important element where we are coming at it from a 13-year hiatus unreviewed. And I think that something that was going on before you joined the board was the process of getting into that review. So that review is going to happen in the near future. Then how we move forward from there, I think, is going to be key. And because we're getting into reviewing it for the first time, I think that blinds us a little bit to what that time frame should be as far as the review cycle. Because I do think that human growth and development is different from other curriculums because it is an integrated element of the curriculum, like you talked about earlier. I think it sets itself apart a little bit because of that, if nothing else. Not to mention the potential subject matter. So I would agree with you, but I almost think that we're gonna get a clearer idea of how frequently we need to review it as we start to review it now for the first time.
I actually have some specific questions for Jelaine. So you had said that you have extensive experience with this bill, just because of your history. So from your experience, when you've spoken to people, is there a large amount of change, or is it really every few years we're just going through the material and maybe some stuff is added, but very little of the content is altered where it would be a hindrance to the staff members? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so one of the hardest things about HG&D is there is no regulation from DPI on it.
Mhm.
So out of 420 school districts in our state, it's very difficult to get consensus. I think one of the biggest mistakes that was made with this bill, the two should have been opt-in, and secondly, there should have been a mandated review period. So in the districts that I have contacted through the years after this bill was signed into
Okay.
law, okay, was first of all, committees were not comprised according to the law.
Okay,
All right. And secondly, they had not done what we're talking about. They had not put in a time limit or a period for review.
okay.
So this is there was a lot of latitude given to the school districts in this bill to play with it, if you will. To the point where, as I said, it has some teeth, so you can pretty much do each one. But I've seen it all.
So I can tell you from my experience, and I've been working on curriculum instruction for 21 years, right? So I've done this work in a number of different schools, 3 different school districts. This will be the 4th. And I will tell you this, Tammy, there usually isn't much change. But what happens through that review period, right, is usually a fairly lengthy and fairly drawn out review period, because there are a lot of people who have a lot of opinions about this, right? And it gets stretched out over weeks and sometimes months. And in the end, it's like, we changed one little thing. And it seems like there's a lot of that, because generally people's views on this don't change over time, right? These cultures are there and they're in, and that's what it is. But there is an opportunity to rip the Band-Aid off every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever you want to. But in the end, I have not seen in total the curriculum change much over the number of years in the districts I've been in, right? Maybe a lesson or two, but in general, 4th graders, we talk about taking care of your bodies, right? And doing healthy choices, right? That's it. 5th grade, you start talking a little bit about puberty and what it means, those kind of things. Those things just don't change much. But what gets talked about a lot are a lot of the ephemeral stuff that gets people really worked up about, contraception or not, or, other things like that. And most districts fall is we don't really go into depth on that. We mention that stuff's out there and talk to your parent or talk to your doctor, and that's in Wisconsin where most people lie. But boy, is there a lot of argument about it for 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes 2 or 3 months, to end up at the same place.
Doesn't the state statute say though that we,
Hold, Jane had a comment first.
Just my opinion over what I've viewed over 21 years of doing curriculum.
Mhm.
So at the same time period, a little bit longer of viewing these schools. And I had seen some large school districts. Absolutely, because the parents found out what was going on. I'm not saying it happens here. I don't think it does. But I've seen school districts absolutely overhaul their HG&D program.
Yeah, I'm not Madison or Milwaukee.
Well, no, it wasn't Madison or
Yeah.
Milwaukee, but they wouldn't overhaul it. Neither one of those would change. But I've seen other school districts, because of the material circus that were being used within the HG&D program, which nobody knew about until somebody did the research and found out. And so then they convened the committee. And so I think it can happen. Look, I tend to be in favor of proscriptive rather than, and I shouldn't say proscriptive. That's not the word I want.
Ounce of prevention.
Proactive. I would sooner be proactive so that we're not surprised. I don't think it's, you know what, I could personally probably live with 5 years. I just think that it needs something so that people know what's going on.
I think striking the middle with 4 years would be, like, let's try that, seriously. I said 5, you said 3, 4 is a happy medium.
I'd be open to it. I think that would be a great item. And this is certainly related to the specific thing we're discussing now, but I do think that that would be best brought to next month's committee meeting so that we can dig into it a little bit more in detail. We can bring in the advisory committee policy to look at. We can bring in the curriculum review policies. And we can look at some of those details. We can have Jason Boris come in and talk
Yeah,
about.
some of those were headed up and working through ed services, but if we wanna,
Yeah.
have,
We can
have
even
either
do-
this go there or that come here, I'm okay. I mean,
Mhm.
the same people are gonna sit around the table. I just wanna know where it goes. But I'm happy with that.
Yeah, wherever.
Go here, then head services.
I do
because
think-
work in the morning.
Well, and well, now, so we need to, so that's a discussion for planning and the chairs meeting. We can talk about that. We can talk about that.
Chairs can't agree, the president gets to pick. Just want you to know.
So we can definitely talk about that in the near future as well. What's up, Lori?
So, I'm confused as to why a review would automatically trigger a change in curriculum.
It doesn't. That's why I said, most of the time, like, you have these review committees. And again, it's the people's chance to, again, review in detail, whatever. But, you get a good 3-4 weeks of, and hopefully it's not prolonged. But I've been on one that took 6 months, right? Over, a very small issue, and in the end, no changes happened. But boy, there was some tear up in the community about that, and I'm not saying that we should be scared away from reviewing,
Mhm.
but imagine if we reviewed every year. Can we?
No, nobody's asking.
I know that, and I'm not throwing that out there as a straw man argument. I'm just saying, like, I also think that you're right. If we throw it out there for 10 years, there is going to be creep into that curriculum, and after about 6-7 years, people are going to go like, how did this get in here?
Mm.
Right. And so I think that sweet spot is somewhere between 4 and 5 years. I think 3 is a little quick turnaround, especially, you want to get good at your craft and not have to be changing it all the time. Right.
I'm okay with 4 years.
And so that's why I just, I wanted to throw those ideas out there for you. Again, you do what you want, and we will enact whatever. Those are my experiences over the last, couple decades of work.
And I think that considering we haven't reviewed this in 25-ish.
Yeah, it's gonna be a strong,
Yeah.
long process probably this first time. So you don't wanna make any decisions based off of this process.
So if
First time.
once we get this and if we review it in 4 years and we're going, well, this was a waste of time, we didn't need to change anything, we can change the intervals at that time.
Yeah, and I would, again, I think we should discuss the details of how frequently this particular curriculum is reviewed at August's policy committee meeting. Only because I think that would be most relevant, and we're not talking specifically about any policy we're not talking about any specific policy that has to do with review frequency. But I do hear what you're saying. What's up, Craig?
I would also submit to the board that if there is a particular concern that rises to the level of board urgency,
Mhm.
that the board can pull something out of regular
Oh,
cycle.
Right, well, out of the
Always.
regular cycle, you're
Yes.
right. I mean, and or a law change can do that, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that will pull it out of the regular cycle. I mean, you guys write the policies, you certainly can change them or suspend them for a time period or whatever. I mean, it's your policy, you interpret it, right?
Mhm.
So, however you want to do that. But, yeah, I've said my piece. You guys decide.
Yeah.
You guys are the deciders.
Like I said, I mean, I think the action item that would come out of this is let's pull that relevant policy content to next month's meeting for a discussion. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
good for me.
Awesome, cool. Alrighty, I'm trying to think. No, I really like the updates that Renee did, just to bring that back around. Really appreciate the work that you guys did on that. I know it was a little bit of an unusual question. It's not how people think about it typically, but
Yeah, I've
I
never.
think that's where the wind is blowing.
In 20-some years, I've never been posed that question, opt in versus opt out. I was just like, well, law says opt out. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We're innovative.
Right? I mean, I was like, I don't know that we can do that. I'm gonna have to ask.
It's something parents have been asking for a long time.
Yeah. So I'm happy to see it. But if there are no further questions on 2414, we will move on to item E, which is 3 policies. It's 3216, 4216, and 5511. We did have one change from the last general board meeting. We pulled it out. I think it's the second alphabetical list. We have under item D, headwear may be worn only for religious purposes, health or safety, or for sensory sensitivity. So,
Which policies?
sorry, it's policy 5511. That's a student dress and grooming. The other 2 are for, of course, teachers, which falls under more of an employment category. This is for students, and we talked about this at the last couple of meetings. There's personal expression, people who are attending of their own volition or some kind of language like that when it comes to students. So there's obviously a little bit of difference in where you go with some items of where. So does anyone have any further questions?
I have a question on that policy on item H under specific, I think it's on the first page, it is.
Yeah.
Bottom should be at least fingertip length. Why is the verb should there? Why is that not stronger? Because it's in a section that says specifically they must comply.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the latitude that's being allowed there?
No, I don't think there was.
I think it was being used as a synonym for shall.
It's not.
Understand that?
If you're writing legal policy, should and shall will have
Yeah.
huge differences.
Yeah, I have no problem with changing the
Yeah,
language from should to shall.
From
yeah, I'm
should
good with
to-
that. Let's
Well,
change it to shall.
I rather use the word will instead of
Mhm.
shall.
Yes.
Shall feels very legal in educational policy. We tend to use will instead of shall. They mean the same
There you
thing,
go.
but,
Sure.
We are.
but in educational policy, it just feels,
I totally agree.
it's easier to read.
All right, item H, should to will. Policy 5511.
But interestingly, very next line says, these guidelines shall also apply to the dress requirements. No, I'm just teasing, all right.
We can change it if you want. Wherever there's a shall, if I could change it to a will, I would.
I think of that, I think of the French painting of the pipe, and it says, this is not a pipe. I think about that every time I read policy, because that's treachery of images. And I think that, you've got a little bit of ambiguity that's just inherent in language, no matter what you do.
Well, I think in dress,
Stop.
the nemesis of every organization that tries to do one, right?
Yep.
And I think for students in particular, more specificity just helps the school district have a little bit firmer way to enforce. It becomes something that's not so arbitrary.
Yeah.
And then you can measure, or whatever. And you and I know that even with the change to bottoms will be at least fingertip length, there will be a lot of subjectivity to that.
We talked about it.
We
Yeah.
talked about it,
Yeah.
and that's why I said, it's whenever we get into dress codes, again, like you, I think they're the bane of my existence because I've spent so many days and hours, not just in this school district, every school district I've ever been in, even as a teacher, even as a student teacher, there was discussion about dress code somewhere along the line, right? And in the end, you're right, it comes down to enforcement, not necessarily the code. You can enforce a really bad dress code really well with good culture and good enforcement, right? And so like, it's really, I hope that our families and our staff and everybody hear your words, which is, we feel like there's a problem. We'd like to try to delineate a little bit more for you what we're hoping for and to be enacted, right? And that parents help enact it, our staff help enact it, right? And then we see the cultural change that you want to see.
And it's truly,
Right.
that the policy, any policy like this is a tool for the administration and for the staff so that they have the means necessary to handle issues as they arise. And judgment is always an incredibly important part of that. So this is not an issue with questioning the judgment. This is an issue of empowering the judgment of people who work in the district.
I would say that, the dress code policy was a policy, this was a concern of parents, that's why it came forward. And, and it was a former board member, actually, that brought it forward as a concern. So, and that board member is no longer on this board. So, and, yeah,
Well, interestingly, in looking at the comments that staff wrote on their survey, inconsistency in enforcement of dress code showed up at least once or twice.
yeah.
And where people felt like, it just wasn't fair across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So the more appropriately articulate and specific we can be, it makes it easier for all your building people.
Yeah, we were making some progress, because this goes back now a year and a half or so, but last year around this time-ish, we met to discuss it. Former board member brought it forward. She had some issues that some parents were talking to her about and brought it forward. And at that time, then, just giving a little history lesson for the newer board members.
I think I
about
watched that.
how we got here. We talked then a little bit about, well, I think we just need to do a better job of enforcing it. And actually we did, we were making some gains on that. And then, we lost one of our assistant principals to, a better job for her, in a different district. And without that extra little piece of support and, oversight, like, it just fell back again. And so then we were like, well, maybe we just need to change the policy. Again, I still think it was the enforcement and how the enforcement fell apart. Not necessarily the policy, but the policy, giving more tools, that'll be good, and we will move it forward.
I believe we tried to write it so that the staff could easily enforce it, but it's not something cumbersome.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was an extremely reasonable dress code policy. My first read through that.
I've been quoted by saying, even if you have a uniforms policy, which is a strictest dress code you can have, you will still have enforcement issues if you don't do the enforcement.
Mhm.
Right. And so I really, again, I keep putting it back to our parents and our staff. We hope that, this policy can be a tool to help inform them, and that they can help us enforce it.
And it does begin with parents.
And I speak for myself. There's the changes to the staff dress code, right? And not only but I have to help other, administration enforce that, right, with the staff piece. So.
Well, any other questions, comments about item E? These, any three of these? No? All right. Nothing else. We will move on to item F, which is 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. All right, we have the original, we have the one that has some edits, and another sheet that goes along with those edits. So Jared, go ahead and give us an update.
Yeah, so if you go again to the edited version, and then, in this version, we talked a lot about controversial issues in the classroom. You can see that the most recent edit, and the biggest one, was again at the bottom of the page, where we talk about, the WSD will, refrain from any activities that threaten to undermine religious beliefs that parents wish to instill in their children, and from imposing upon, children a set of values and beliefs, that are hostile to the parent or religious beliefs. And then it says, however, and then this sentence was in there, the board recognizes that a course of study or certain instructional materials may contain content and or activities that some parents find objectionable. And then we stuck in the piece that says teachers shall, provide effective notice to parents in advance of controversial issues being, instructed in the classroom. So on, you can read through the rest of it. It was really important, I think, for our attorney and I to make sure that we had at least a bar start standard for our teachers to understand and know. And so relating that bar to first be controversial issues in the classroom, for them to take a look through their curriculum and understand, is this a controversial issue? It doesn't mean you can't teach it. It means stop a second, inform parents about what you're about to do. So if they want to opt out their child, and especially in light of the new Supreme Court, ruling that happened this April, May, somewhere around
It
there,
happened June.
June. What days are going by fast?
Yeah,
June
I know, right?
13th, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago, but every week feels like a day.
Yeah, it does. But in light of recent developments, we wanted to make sure that we outline that in there. And we are going to make sure that when teachers come back, we're going to say, hey, one of the big policy changes this summer, you may have heard, it was on the news, is this. And we want to make sure that you understand the first benchmark that we're going to look at is it a controversial issue? Controversial issues is a new policy that we've defined what controversial issue means for us as a school district. Look at these things, and if you do have something that may be controversial, your first right and or duty is to contact parents, let them know about that issue, let them know about their ability to opt a child out of that issue. Okay, so that's there. Also, then next you will see there's an opt-out form that we've created for parents that will be posted on our webpage, and they will have access to be able to do that.
All right. That being said, do we have any questions about 2240 or the opt-out form?
I will just say this, that also this will be discussed at Ed Services again, just reminding you to talk a little bit more about strategies about how we're going to put that in place. And it will also be talked about at our admin retreat. Again, newer to us, we need some time to really put this in place, but we will certainly react to any request by a parent, with our ability to do so.
Yeah,
right?
so this discussion is about the language of the policy and the
Mhm.
accompanying documents specifically. What's up, Craig?
I would ask, I mean, it seems as though we were a little bit ahead of perhaps the Supreme Court on this one.
Yeah.
And I thought we were seeking some further clarification on that at some point. And
We are, and we will get, like I said, Renee and I did everything we could to, take a look at it, think about it, and then think about it in terms of policy first. Then she said, let's get that down. Let's make sure that that's what your board intends,
okay,
right? And if your board intends that for policy, because I will tell you, there are other school districts who are not going to go this far, and there's some other districts who may even intend to go further. I don't know, but this is a starting point for you guys to look at, and if you're happy with this, then we talk about how are we going to implement,
yeah.
right? And so we can do that. Is there more that you want than that? Is
Yeah, I was just kind
what you like from her?
well, I was just kind of hoping that at some point that there's going to be perhaps more guidance provided. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say, each state, right?
Yeah.
Is gonna go through and different organizations within each state and even nationally are right now talking about like, how do we give guidance on this?
okay,
And that happens with whenever there's a law change or a Supreme Court ruling or even district court ruling or whatever that comes through. So I would say, we are a little bit still ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
Which is good. And I would say that, we're gonna start seeing really good guidance come out in the next 2 or 3 months.
okay. I mean, I guess the biggest concern I have is that we're remaining in compliance with the law. And that, and yet we're still able to communicate out to families that, well, at some point this might change, it's subject to change according to the guidance that we received and the law that we.
Yeah, and Renee thinks that by putting this in here, having a form ready, right? Even before some registration starts, she's like, you guys are positioning yourselves really well. So like, I just want you to know that, and things may change, right? As we develop and get into this, things may change, but I think this is a good starting point, at least from policy standpoint. Ed Services will talk about implementation strategies around this and how are we going to make sure that that becomes part of our programming.
Absolutely.
So Craig, I followed this case very, very closely.
Yeah.
And I think what we've done is, the court was very clear. schools, parents have the right to opt the children out of anything in a school that is, violates their convictions or their religious beliefs, personal conviction, whatever. Beyond that, they didn't say a whole lot about the whys and the wherefores of it. So I think you'll probably get pretty much the same, if it's any
Yeah.
comfort. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but
Sure.
Right.
I've
And,
worked with them.
you know, and if there's people who are, some people watch this or they download the video or whatever, it's the Muhammad versus Taylor case that we're talking about. Some people might not know that one.
Can we cite that on the policies? Can we just, like, the legal reference of why we're making those?
Yeah, why don't we capture that as an action item, so I don't forget that, and then I'll talk with Renee and say, hey, how do you? Usually they say, state and federal law, sometimes we do the actual state law and make it in the federal law, but sometimes with like court cases, we don't always necessarily cite court case, but I'll ask her about it.
Okay.
Alright.
Just in
I
case
mean, there's a
parents
difference
are,
between, citing a law and a court decision.
right, I
Right.
understand that, but if parents look at this and it's vastly different than what it was before, at least they're not calling and asking why are these changes? They can reference that case and see, okay, well, now I understand.
Right.
Because under the current configuration of our state government, there will not be a law
Correct,
that would be like that.
correct.
Not a state law.
Right, that's what I mean. So you wouldn't be, and there's not a federal law at this point on that. So now you do rely on a Supreme Court case.
Yes.
Mhm. All right, any other discussions about any other aspect of 2240? This is, it was on the agenda for second read on the consent agenda. So, like we talked about at the beginning, if we're gonna make any changes, that will bring it back for further discussion next month. Does anyone have anything else they would like to see change on this?
No, just adding the actual case law
Okay.
or the case that triggered the change, I think would be beneficial.
Gotcha,
We've got, like I said, some runway, because you won't see it until August anyway.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
we got some runway to make that change if we need to.
I do have one more question about this, and I think that this might be enough that it pulls it back a month, but let me know, maybe you and Renee have had a discussion about this. At the top of page 2, we have talking about discussion of controversial issues. On the third line of that paragraph, in the middle, new sentence starts. It says, if a staff member expresses a personal opinion on controversial issues, he or she shall identify the opinion as such and must not express such an opinion for the purpose of influencing students to adopt his or her point of view. So I like that we have the language about not doing so to influence students to adopt his or her point of view. Can you give us a little bit of background and context on what the idea is on how we're going to do that? Because I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I mean, I remember I was in a speech class and I had a teacher, when we were talking about positioning speeches, I had a teacher say, I think Scott Walker is the devil. And that was probably, looking back, not appropriate for the teacher to say any more than it would be to say something about someone else from the opposite political party. And although that wasn't expressly said to influence opinion, I think that because you have a relationship and a bond that forms between teachers and students over the course of a year or over the course of a semester, you do have issues where expressing a personal opinion carries a lot of sway when a teacher is a person in a position of authority who has a likable personality, and that can cause issues for parents when there's a disagreement or there's friction there. So yeah, I know that's a really broad question. Do you have any thoughts or anything you can say in response to that?
I don't have anything with me right now.
Mhm.
And if I did, I'd have to go back to my notes and our discussion with Renee on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a change that we made
Yeah, it's been a little while. I'm just wondering if that's
3 months.
strong enough or if there
yeah.
really needs to be a little bit
I'm
more.
happy to go back to her and ask,
Yeah,
do you remember why we chose this wording?
yeah. I mean, I'll put that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Julian.
Well, question, because I've had this happen before in a classroom.
Mhm,
A student asked me, what's your opinion?
mhm.
That's a legitimate, in my opinion, that's a legitimate question from a student to a teacher. And so I don't think we want to tie our teachers from expressing a personal opinion if it meets all this criteria.
But if they were to say, you asked for my opinion, my personal opinion is this, And I want you to know that that's my personal opinion. You're free to think however you want, right?
You really have to.
I don't
couch it
know,
that way.
but I'll ask Renee what her thoughts were around it, but without having my notes in front of me, and that was, a month or weeks ago.
So then I guess, what I would, oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
On that topic, back when you were teaching, it was well known that certain teachers in the high school would grade essays based on whether or not they agreed with their opinion. There's nothing in here about grades. Should there be?
Do we have a separate piece of policy on grading fairness or something like
We
that?
have our grading policy, and I'd have to go back and look at, exactly what language was in there about
Wasn't,
that.
isn't that part of our policies here?
It's in our policy deck.
And-
On the 5,000s.
And the grading policy that we're looking at in the 5,000s there, that is the policy that we were talking about having another former board member work on before their departure. So I don't know if there's anything we want to do there. I mean, I think I would say, do the other members of the committee think that we should take 2240, our controversial issues, and bring it forward for second read, or would you like to have that hold off, come back next month for further discussion?
Well, yeah, I'm still debating what needs to be done here. This just occurred to me when you brought that up. And I'm going to gather your opinions first and have that discussion.
I
Yeah.
would also throw something else out there
Mhm.
too. I mean, because you know, the longer you take to figure this out, the less likely you're going to have something in place before the beginning of the school year that can be communicated out. So
You just use don't let great be the enemy of good.
yes.
I agree. Yes.
Sure.
So can we table that for maybe another?
I mean, you bring up your topic isn't necessarily just related to controversial issues. Your topic is about grading fairness,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's a whole nother topic that, again, we should put on our future agenda items list and say, do we like our policy around grading and grading fairness? Do we address it well enough so that, we have that piece in there?
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I agree with
What you
that.
mean,
Lori,
but
I would say anecdotally, from my daughter's experience, even though her teachers and her have different views, they very open and honest with one another, but her grades were never.
I'm not saying it still happens.
Right. So I'm
But
just saying
back-
like.
back in the day, it
anecdotally,
has
and-
happened.
Yes, I understand, just based on Autumn's experience.
That's awesome.
The teachers are very, you have your opinions, I have my opinions, but I'm here to educate.
That's the way to do education. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that there is an element of professionality that goes along with this, and I think for a lot of parents that students are there to learn. They're there to learn information, not to hear personal opinions. And I definitely heard from several people that they feel strongly about that. Obviously, like Jelaine talked about, there are examples, particularly with non-controversial issues, where giving an opinion and contextualizing it with, this is my opinion, you need to figure things out yourself with your family and with other people in your life. Although that can be valid, I mean, I've seen a fair amount of these things happen, and I've heard from a fair number of people about these things happening with their children. So, I mean, that's why I'm asking about it. That's where I would fall is, let's pull this back. Let's talk about it in August. We can still make a determination at the August board meeting.
Okay, so why don't we have Jared look into it with Renee for this policy
Mhm.
and not attach any grading to this specific policy, but actually take some time to look at the actual grading
I'm good
policy.
with that.
Yeah, grading policy is first read, so we will have more time to go through.
So I guess I see clarification on
Mhm.
on Tammy's recommendation.
Okay,
So
so
are you
Jared had made
suggesting,
mention that he would reach out to Renee about the wording.
but are you suggesting that this stays back another month as Sam is suggesting? Or are
Well,
you,
So that Jared can talk to Renee
Well,
for
it
the
would have to
clarification.
stay back another month for Jared to speak to Renee
Yeah.
about the wording.
I'm not okay with that. I think we should,
Just remember, all of these policies, are not gonna be on until August for
But
approval
these
anyway.
are, the.
Oh, those,
anything
That's the specific reason I'm
Yeah,
asking
over
about it.
thousands is at,
Right.
would be going to.
Below the
second reading on
8,000.
Monday.
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
it sounds like we have an opportunity on grading and we can pass this. That's just my opinion.
okay,
Just through all the years of, people, for teachers being called on grading, I've never seen a problem after the principals handle it with the parents. It always seems to work out, but
You have to have a good principal, like
Yeah.
Jared said. Your administration makes all the difference.
yeah, I'm gonna say this, like, I really agree with Dan's standpoint here, because we have a ladder of, system where parents can start the complaint process with the teacher, follow it through to the principal, then the superintendent, and then to you as a board.
And at this time, this wasn't
Right.
happening, there was no process in place.
Yeah, and,
So-
you know,
It's different.
so if there is perceived unfairness, a policy change isn't gonna fix it to be more fair.
I understand.
What will fix it is somebody saying something that they think this is not, how they view it should go, and bringing in evidence and talking with the teacher, and then talking with the principal, all the way through to you. And they will get their final answer through you, if they wanna keep going up that, track. So,
I'm fine with that.
I just want to say that I believe Dan is right in that regard.
Yeah.
Most of the time, though, I will say this, most of the time, it's handled between the parent and the teacher. Most of the time.
Jillian?
I forgot to bring up something under the student parent rights thing. Is it inappropriate or is it, is that a done deal now?
Let's finish this discussion and then we can talk about that. So then I'll just, I guess, informally call the question because we've got, I think, some difference of opinion among the committee members. So I'm just gonna do a show of hands because that'll be easy. So, all committee members that would like to hold policy 2240 back 1 month for further clarification, hands? Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to put you in a hard spot. So it goes 2 to 1. Hey, you're fine. Hey, this agreement is part of the legislative process. So, okay, so then we're gonna hold back 2240 until August. We're gonna get some more clarification on that before we move forward with it.
this already went through, first read, so,
Yeah.
okay. Alright,
All right, then, really quick, there was another comment.
I had a family ask me about this and it drew my attention to it. I just want to make sure that the policy committee is truly okay with the wording in here, and it's on policy 5780.
Yeah.
The second paragraph or sentence, which reads, "In providing students the opportunity for an education to which they are entitled, the WUSD shall attempt to offer nurture, counsel, and custodial care appropriate to their age and maturity." All policy members are okay with that language.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think in the process of discussing the updates, we did gloss over that. Do you guys have any initial thoughts on it?
I don't think that it's the WUSD staff responsibility to counsel or offer custodial care for children, personally.
Yeah, and then, so then I'll bounce that back
That's
to
why
Jared
I
really
was
quick.
hoping it could be adjusted and separated between student rights and parents' rights.
Yeah, and so I'll bounce that back to Jared really quick because I know that sometimes we have terminology that sounds a little unusual, I suppose, as far as like day-to-day speech is concerned. But maybe there's like a specific like legal element to that. Can you give us a little bit of information if you have it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, which number is that?
Yeah. It's the first one. It's item A and it's 5780. The student parent rights discussion.
It's,
Item A.
it's a second paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the second,
Yep.
First line of the second paragraph in that policy,
in providing students with the opportunity of education, right?
Yeah.
right?
And it says
Okay, hold on
VW.
a second. Yeah, in providing. Okay, so what is the part with that you have question about?
The three terms, nurture, counsel, and custodial care, they do, reading over it, have they have an unusual flavor.
Yeah,
say the
especially the
least.
council. Are we providing counseling without a license here? What's going on?
No, no. So, for instance, like, of course, when we say offer nurture, right? You're nurturing somebody, they get bumps and bruises, scratches, they're crying and mom, and it's like, mom's not here right now, you're nurturing them, right? That kind of stuff. The custodial care part comes in, especially when you have students with needs. We may need to do some custodial care with those individuals.
Can you build that out and tell me what that means?
Without trying to be graphic, they may have a rectal suppository that we have to help them place.
So like the
Because
nurse would help them. That's what that means.
Right, and I mean, it's custodial care, but we have to do that, right? And I'm not trying to be gross, I'm just saying like, I'm not,
It's nursing service.
it's nursing services, right?
There are things that, well, we're not, what we do have an RN, we have people in our health rooms that do the custodial care of students to make sure that they're not bleeding or that they're not having issues, that they receive their medication.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. And then the council
And
part,
we certainly have students who are in conflict, right? They see, their school counselors, to talk through that and work it out. And sometimes they work it out together. Sometimes they work it out together, sometimes they don't, right? It depends on the issue, I mean, we don't call a parent for every instance between students,
But if the district is offering that student some sort of counseling,
not counseling like you would see
the
from
parent should be aware, Jared.
I would understand that if
Counselors.
it was the kind of counseling that you would get from a licensed counseling, a licensed counseling professional. We're talking about, talking about friend strategies and working things through and those kind of things. We're not talking about the things that a licensed a licensed professional counselor would talk about. That's a whole different level that our staff are not prepared for. If it was something like that, we would refer the family to those kind of services.
So I think what kind of comes across with that terminology is there's almost a parental flavor to it. And so maybe a good solution to that would be, if we're talking to Renee, can we ask Renee about alternative vocabulary that it maybe carries a little
I
bit
just
more
want you-
formal sense?
Yeah, I want you guys to understand what we do.
Yeah.
So that you can help me craft what you want. I'm not defending the language. I'm saying,
Mhm.
here's what we
Yeah,
do.
most definitely.
Right? And I don't want people to think we're offering the kind of counseling that you might be worried about, because certainly we wouldn't do that. Right?
Right, I mean, because like in a natural situation, where you're trying to help develop a child's soft skills, you might actually
Exactly.
provide some, yeah, this is a better decision than
the hard part is how to communicate that in the language.
Right,
I mean, you do have guidance counselors, so I mean, the word counsel is not completely out of place there, or at least they're still called that, right? Guidance counselors,
There's called
school counselors. Okay, well, there you go. Maybe even better. So, I mean, you have a school counselor offering counsel. I totally understand that. Okay, interesting.
right.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, I guess that would be the action item if there's alternative language there that sounds a little bit more formal, because I did get that email as well. I got it right. I saw it right before I came in here. So yeah, looking at that would definitely be worthwhile.
Explained it well. Do you have alternative,
just because she's
more
in charge of that.
descriptive words that you can suggest? Correct.
I think that the word counseling is the word that trips things up, right?
Right.
Because people use that synonymously with mental health care, which we do not provide.
Right, is
So
there,
I think that utilizing, and I'm just, I'm gonna need some time to process what it could be so that it's not interpreted for what it's not.
Of course.
And then we can go through another read on it, but,
Mhm.
we don't provide mental health care, we're not licensed to do that. Do we provide, being a kind friend, helping others? Sure, but this isn't mental health.
Yeah, I don't want the language to be
Yeah.
misleading, because keep in mind, parents, new to the district, they're gonna look this up and they're gonna say, what are you doing?
Could be.
It's like,
Or they're gonna say, hey, we didn't know you did that here. Can I see some more? Like, no, we don't do that. I mean, seriously, on both sides of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, hold on.
and again, this is, this particular policy that we're looking at it's not like it's going into second read, so there is gonna be further discussion about these things. So it's not down to the wire. Okay,
Thanks, Julie.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm sure the individual who wrote the email does as well. Let me see if there is anything else. Oh, I switched over to the monthly board meeting to
Just
check that
so,
out.
I'm straight, I don't believe she said there was an email that she was following up on. She said there was a contact with the family.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you had something different than I did. I saw an email come in.
I
Closely.
don't wanna box anybody into saying it
It
wasn't.
happened to be through an email, but
Okay.
Okay, well, sorry.
contact, email contact.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, if there's nothing else, we were on F, went back to A, now we're done with that. We're gonna move on to item G, which is 5136, personal communication devices. This is about the language of the policy. Again, if we're talking about implementation or things like that, that is ed services. But does anyone have any questions about the language in 5136? Well,
Yeah,
you do, okay.
I wish it were stronger so that it would be easier for implementation.
Do you have a specific area that you'd like to see that strength added in?
Under A,
Under A, students are permitted to possess a cell phone.
Scott.
Are you guys working off of the non-edited one?
So
There's only one edited one in there.
Yeah, there's only one I see.
5780 student parent rights edited.
No,
We
no.
moved on to G,
Oh,
sorry.
130.
I was like, oh, what?
5136.
I thought we were still on the same policy. I'm like, wait a minute.
No, sorry.
Communication.
Jeez,
Yeah.
You guys are quick.
Have we decided yet I don't think we've decided as a board if we're going to if we're gonna ban cell phone stand.
I know, and that's my preference.
This is my hot button issue, so
All right,
when you get
go
that.
ahead.
Go ahead.
So right now, whether or not we allow cell phones or ban cell phones, it's really the teacher that has to deal with this distraction in the classroom. And I have not met a teacher that wants their children, their students to be on a cell phone while they're trying to teach. Right? I don't think that's the problem. I think it's a matter of having the tools to do their job well without having to be distracted with policing cell phones. And so I have researched what solutions work, and there are tools out there that we can implement that are not expensive that teachers can utilize. One I looked up is called the Yondr pouch, YONDR. It's not 100% because students are creative, but it is 90% effective, which is the most effective approach that has been used across the nation with schools. So I would like to see this policy as is, and then give teachers the tools they need to do their job.
Yeah, that's my thought. I think that this policy is actually worded very, very strongly. Outside of saying you're literally not allowed to have a cell phone on the premises of the property, which again, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that goes too far. I think I've been pretty open about that.
And as a parent, you always want to be able to contact your child in an emergency. That's the
Yeah.
gold standard. And with the Yondr pouch, what they can do, and there's different options, but what they can do is the front is clear, so they can see if they have a message. They can put it on do not disturb so that parents ring through. And then if they have an emergency, They can grab the pouch, take it to the teacher unlocks it, boom, you have access to your, for your emergency. So it's a non-issue.
So maybe we can talk about that at the Ed Services meeting in August. I'm not, maybe August, maybe September. I'm not trying to, not trying to pile things on. But yeah, I think that would be really cool looking at those implementations.
Just a quick anecdotal on that. I was in a number of classrooms when they were doing the spring music, the competition. And I noticed that a number of teachers had cell phone pouches in their room, which indicated to me when the students came in, they were supposed to put their cell phone in those pouches.
Right.
So some of them are doing that, which I think is a great idea.
And it's
You know, you still
implemented
get the cell
across
phone and, put a little more money in it and you have the kind of thing you're talking about, all the better.
Yeah, and there's a bill going across legislature in Wisconsin to ban cell phones from bell to bell.
But we
It
have,
hasn't, yes, I'm fine with moving forward to making some district changes for
Mhm.
that. I think they are very distracting.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Can I ask, I mean, if we're not going to consider a policy change, I mean, now, when do we plan on having a discussion about it? I mean, I kind of like to be like the touch it now type of person. I mean, sorry, touch it once type of person where, you deal with it and then,
okay, so I have an answer.
yeah.
I researched this extensively, and what works best for schools is if you pilot with 1 or 2 classrooms, and the teacher is able to figure out how that works with the policy. And then when they actually implement it, they can put that into the policy so it works.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Go ahead.
Sarah, do you have any other alternatives?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. And what I'll do is whenever we bring this back to discussion, whether it's at policy or ed services, I have examples of actual equipment that you could put cell phones in, et cetera, so I can bring that for you as well. There is also technology out there where you can have a boundary map of a particular school building. And there is the ability to shut off cell phone coverage or the ability for cell phones to hit the towers for all phones. However, you're able to override that for teachers, administrators, police, whomever might be in there by programming their number into that system.
Very
So-
interesting.
So there is a lot of opportunity because this is not unique. It's not unique to us. It's not unique to Wisconsin. This is an issue in all, education sites right now where they're struggling, Dan. And so there's a lot of new technology out there where people are trying to make it so that it's not a distraction for students and for learning.
Can I ask about the device that you can program around the building? I understand it will take away cell phone service, so they won't be able to text or receive calls.
Correct.
But what does it do as far as like students connecting to the school Wi-Fi with their cell phone to still access their social media?
So I think we're gonna get a little deep into that conversation and we're not really agendaed for that.
And that's what I was about to say.
So, but I would like to, have this referred to, Jason Bull in our tech department along with Sarah.
Mhm.
They both have a lot of good information on this. And maybe come up with ideas of some solutions if that's the route you wanna go down.
Mhm.
That's fine, but we need to pull back to the policy.
Yeah.
And
5136.
policy
The
in
language
question.
policy.
That's something that is probably gonna take some time to research. Like you said, runs maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different pilot programs, right? That's a year away. I'd like to have something that,
That's a year away?
well, possibly when you get into
If you're
that kind of,
piloting.
when you're
Yeah.
piloting and you're trying to figure stuff out, we're not only dealing with cell phone, but we're dealing with some companies who have satellite stuff. We're doing with our own internal network issues. There's a lot of
Mhm.
technology keeps changing, and so I want to make sure that as the technology has changed, maybe something that was 6 months ago was good, might not be so good anymore. So I want to make sure that our tech department has time to do that for,
Well, yes, and if there's grants that we need to seek in order to help fund that sort of thing, then we have to have the runway to do that.
So
And I think it's prudent because knowing that there's state law as a possibility, right? Anything that we do to preempt that may be spending a lot of money in one direction, and if they go into a different direction, it may be a whole different process that we have to think about and talk about.
Yeah, so I
we'll
can't
give us
really
a little-
imagine, I can't imagine writing a strong or more strongly worded policy than this outside of just flat out banning them from the premises entirely. And so, I mean, you said it earlier, don't let, in this case, I think it's don't let perfect be the enemy of great, not just great be enemy of good. I think this is a great policy. I think it's very strong and it gives people the tools that they need. Does anyone on the policy committee have a desire to see any substantial changes made to the policy as it stands? Which is not saying that we will not discuss tools like the ones that Sarah talked about. That sounds really
Have
cool.
Lori work with Sarah since
Yeah,
she's
and I'm
done
not
extensive
super
research.
invested in any one direction. I just saw something that was possible and it worked somewhere else. So you go for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds great. The action item
Yeah,
would be,
I-
let's do that in the future
I
at services.
actually have a little pamphlet of that bag on my back table of my office too, so.
Interesting. I've never seen one in
Oh,
person.
So-
So like, and you go to the like goodie table.
Yes. I mean, one of the things that we looked at convention was like those kind of.
Yep.
Mhm.
Cool.
So
That's
then we're
great.
gonna move forward with this policy and then Jason and Sarah and Lori will get together to
Start
get some
talking about
ideas together
ideas.
for,
I'm
Yep,
always,
and bring them to ed services.
okay. Okay.
Oh.
Well, we can have a,
including costs. It was not hard to find costs on that.
we can
And
have
I'm
a.
sure Sarah is probably a little better than I am.
Yeah. All right, if there are no further discussions about policy 5136, personal communication devices, we will move on to the last item of the policy discussion section, which is item number H, letter H, 5362, anti-bullying, respect and relationships. This is something that we had some previous discussions about. We had a little bit of update about cyberbullying that we added on here previously, and now it's coming back just for one more read before it goes for second read to the general policy, to the general board meeting. Any thoughts from anyone about the bullying policy? I think, like I said about the last one, I think it's a pretty great policy the way it's written. And we will always have the opportunity to amend as new things come up. I'd be more than happy to look that over. But anyone have any major thoughts? What's up, Craig?
Is there reference to a form that needs to be filed in this in the event to report a bullying instance?
Our form is still the same form, right? And that's on our webpage as a different tool to use to report bullying. So I don't know if you want to have it attached here, but there's certainly ways to get at it other than just going to the policy, but we could certainly attach it to the.
It does say that it can be found on the district website.
Right.
However,
It's not the easiest form to locate, honestly. It's rather difficult to
What is
locate.
this?
We should have a
Connected
big
to this
button on the main
policy?
page that says report.
Yeah, there should be a radio button on. the
So,
page.
really quick to give a little bit of perspective here. One of the things that I asked for at the last Ed Services meeting was a discussion about policies or about our standards and implementation surrounding bullying and behaviors. And I believe that we're still on board to do that towards the beginning of August. Correct, Sarah?
I don't know that it's going to be August
Okay.
because that was already pretty full. I think
Sure.
that we're heading towards September,
Okay.
but I've already started digging in and we already have the data and we have the if this, then this, and what are we doing moving
Awesome.
forward for you.
Okay.
We couldn't fit it into the August, but that is on the docket.
That makes sense. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we'll try to make it more prominent on the webpage as an action item. Is there any thought about having it connected to this policy as a form?
Like a hyperlink or something?
Yeah,
Just having it.
I think
yeah,
a hyperlink would
as
be
part of-
great,
as part-
honestly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that you can do a hyperlink in a.
You mean
PDF
literally just having it added on?
Just literally having it added here, right?
You
As-
can put a link in the, you should
Can
be
you-
able to put a
can you?
link in the
Okay.
board policy.
Okay, then we'll just hyperlink it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I that sounds good to
It's
me.
easier,
Anyone
it's
disagree?
easier then.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll add a hyperlink. Report bullying here. Blue here. Yeah, any other thoughts?
Do we have anything that, deals with a false uh, accusation?
Yes, so we actually do touch on that. Now it's not highlighted in a different color, so it's gonna take me a moment to find it. Um, So I can't find the specific language. I know we talked about this with Renee a few months ago. We talked about, I think I called it like gaslighting, gaslight
Yes.
bullying, where someone basically one kid pushes another kid to a breaking point, makes them do something, and then records it and goes, "Oh, look, he bullied me," or "She bullied me," or whatever. And that, how you would deal with that. So we do have the procedure for reporting. Which touches on that a little bit. And there's an idea of no engaging in retaliatory behavior. But if you'd like to see something that's a little bit stronger there that specifically mentions that,
Yeah.
is that
was a good add.
yeah, that,
Yeah,
that's a good
because, yeah, we were talking about the kind of thing where, somebody was using this policy, right? Poking them a little bit, getting the retaliation from the poke, and then saying they're bullying, right? And that's what we were trying to address with that wording. And so I also don't see where we put that in here,
Did a search.
unless we just grabbed a different,
You said retaliation.
well, I'm saying we may have grabbed a different draft and
This is
I
not
didn't
really
catch it.
So maybe we missed the,
What's back to the last month.
Can you look back at our last committee meeting or?
Yeah, I've got
It
it right
does
here.
appear, so it looks like maybe I have the incorrect. Cause I've got two different looks here,
The draft,
yeah,
yeah, I think we grabbed the wrong draft accidentally.
is it possible to quickly just email us the draft? If
Actually,
it's that little bit of a change.
if you could just find the wording and read it here, if you want to give.
it says using digital technologies to generate, repeat or distribute hostile or damaging content, including but not limited to messages, posts, photos, or videos intended to harm others, platforms, including but not limited to email, cell phones, text messages, instant messages, chat rooms, and social media. Cyberbullying is prohibited and treated the same way as all others. I believe this is, maybe that's not. the right
That's in
thing.
this one, that's in K.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we would want
Yeah,
to put
we
on.
changed those, like, there were some,
We'll just have to find the right draft.
yeah, I'll have to get them to
Yeah.
you guys.
Something along the lines of false accusations of bullying. If nothing else, we could add on to the bullet point list here.
Mhm.
Would that be a substantial enough thing to not bring it forward for second read then? If we can't find that other draft?
Here's the thing. I can include the correct draft for Monday night.
Okay.
Because it's actually at that,
Agenda.
it's agended on there, it's at that level of review anyway.
Yeah.
We were just gonna wordsmith here.
Yeah.
If we needed to, but if we have to, we can wordsmith it there, but.
Sure.
It was pretty solid wordsmithing from Renee anyway. I didn't, it was gonna be more to inform you here. I didn't think you guys were gonna change much.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's great, but I mean, that's a valid question to ask Dan, and that's something that I've worried about. If you are gonna have a strong bullying policy, the response is naturally going to be to try to use the policy for poor purposes.
And again, it's gonna come down to implementing this. So
It's your realm,
you
yeah.
and I are gonna be needing a lot here.
Oh, yeah, that's how it goes. Okay, yeah, any other thoughts about 5362?
No.
All right, if we have no other comments at this time concerning that, we are gonna move on to the next section of the agenda, which is new major revisions. We have none, which means we'll move on to the next one, which is future agenda planning. Anyone have any requests, questions about future agenda planning? I know we have some action items that are relevant to that, but anything else?
Not me at the moment, right? Because we're gonna make the changes to that policy already, and that's an action item.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. And as always, if you want to see something brought forward, email me and Jared, and we'll put it on the agenda as swiftly as possible. All right, if nothing else, we'll look at the action items, past action items. We're looking at 2131, educational outcome goals and expectations, educational process. We're looking at work being completed there. Jared, do you have an update on that at all? I know that some of these are from, some of these were previous projects that other board members were undertaking.
Right, and so, trying to get to that past action items list so I can open it up here and make sure I did.
The cell phones were part of discussion by the greater with the book discussion that the Greater Watertown Health Foundation suggested. Were there additional items out of that book that you gleaned?
You know, I'd have to look at my notes. I'm sure there were other things, but that was the number.
That was the main thing I got out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing would be potentially moving to pen and paper and away from using laptops would
that
be,
was- yeah.
me as well,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah, so I don't know, is that, would that be policy or would that be another?
Education.
Vet services.
That'd be ed services, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and some of the other ones were about recess should be longer and unsupervised and kids risky behavior and that sort of thing. So,
Well, when I remember recess, I don't know, man. I think
Appreciate
it's any less.
Recesses will definitely be supervised.
Can I ask about 2522, the Library Media Center? About a subcommittee?
What? That slipped by.
Well, it's a
This is
past
cool.
action item, so
Yeah,
I'm
and
wondering
yeah.
what that was exactly.
I don't recall what that was, but we'll just put it on our future agenda
Mhm.
and we'll pull the policy and we'll look at it, right?
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
if anything comes of it, then if something comes of
Yeah.
it.
Sure.
So I don't remember what put it on there, but it's certainly to gather that. But like if we talk about administration and policy committee, let's just go through these one at a time.
Yeah.
We're completed on policy 231, educational outcomes, goals, expectations, right? This was part of the grading policy and other things that a former board member had some discussion points about. I want to remind you that all we did in going to Neola is we pulled our former policy into Neola.
Mhm.
If there are changes that we want to do to that, that would be something there, but a former board member was going to sponsor that. They're no longer on the board.
And what was the concern?
Yeah, that's what.
We didn't get to that point. It was just they were gonna sponsor it, right?
Okay.
I could, reach out and ask,
Yes, please.
if you want, and
Yes,
say,
please.
what were the discussion points that you had for us to think about?
Right.
And we can go forward with that. So I'll reach out to that board member and say, hey, what were your discussion points on that so that we can have them move forward? To try to have a meeting with that person and discuss it.
Sure.
The next one is Administrative Policy Committee review of Title IX. We decided to go with our old 2020 Title IX policy and not the Neola's 2020
Okay.
policy. So that's what we pulled forward. So that one's complete, it can be taken off the list. We need to continue to pull forward Library Media Center policy for discussion. Director of Curriculum Instruction, Jenny Boris, will work on formatting changes in draft courses guide template. She is working on that with the Ed Services Committee and has gone quite down a good path and still has more work to do with that committee on that. Discussion during future educational services meeting regarding basically, I think, aspects of classical education, right? And some of the stuff shared out of that book from the foundation.
Oh, is that from part of the book from the Watertown Health Foundation?
The anxiety generation. It talks,
That's,
I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't talk about classical education. It talks about the use of traditional materials for instruction.
Okay,
So
so
they're-
it's similar. It
Right.
just doesn't use classical. I mean, like,
It's a buzzword, you know.
right? Yeah, I think they're trying not to be a buzzword about
Yeah,
it or whatever, but certainly it's on our docket for further discussion. I know a number of you have shared wanting to at least look at what that looks like as a possibility. And then that will be through Ed Services. Jenny is aware of that, and I think they're gonna, start down that path through Ed Services. Discussion during the future educational services meeting regarding enforcement of phones. Again, we reconfirmed that here again today. And 5780 student parent rights policies, we brought that back.
and
So the ones that need to continue off of here are, I'm gonna connect with a former board member about the first bullet. The third bullet with the library media, we need to fit into a future agenda item. And then the rest of those are either completed or are to a different committee, so we can take them off of our action items.
okay.
All right. That being said, we're moving on to present action items. Item B. Lynn, take it away.
Hang on, I'm just gonna finish typing this part. Okay, so, the updates made to policy 5780, from, Dr. Burke and legal counsel are okay to be made so far. And then we're going to divide up, the student parent rights, into two sections, one for student, one for parents. We're going to talk to the legal counsel to craft different language in the second paragraph of 5780 over the verbiage of nurture, counsel, and custodial care. I'm going to move group 5 of the 5,000 policies to first read during the August board meeting. And then group 3 of the 8,000 policies can go to first read during the regular board meeting in August. We are going to make the recommended changes to the human growth and development policy. And we're going to add the curriculum review to be 4 years or every 4 years. And then let's see, we're going to update verbiage in letter H of the dress and grooming policy from should to will. And that's going to be up for second read during the July 28th board meeting. Jared is going to talk to legal counsel regarding adding the Muhammad versus Taylor case to the it was at the controversial
Yes.
policy. And then we're also going to make the recommended changes to policy 2240 that Jared and legal counsel made. It was up for second read, but it's going to come back to the August policy for further discussion instead. The personal communication devices can move on to second read. And then Jason Bull, Sarah O, Lori Hoffman, they're going to get together to talk about ideas for the phones in the classroom. And then anti-bullying, I'm gonna add a link to the policy to the bullying reporting form. We're gonna make that form more prominent on the website, and I'm gonna send you guys an email with the correct gaslighting verbiage, the correct policy. Jared's going to reach out to our former board member to see what the discussion points were regarding the policy 2131, 2132.
And the grading one. And the grading.
And grading. Okay, and then we're also going to remove the Title IX policy notes from our past action items, and we're going to remove, the action items that we are sending off to another committee. I think that's it.
Looks good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good.
We're getting there. So,
All right, excellent. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned at 6:49 PM. Thanks for coming in, guys. Thanks for doing all the hard work with us.
We got 10 minutes between now and our next follow-up, next meeting.
Perfect.
Board meeting, for interviews, so.